Hello and welcome to NTD Canada News Election Special Series. I'm your host, Gary Bai. The party leaders are out on the campaign trail with promises to make life better for Canadians in the banking sector, mental health, and costs for daily living expenses. The parties need to inspire young voters to get out and vote. Why the apathy? And the Liberal Party is accused of granting contracts to the CCP while 2 Canadians sit in a Chinese prison. On Wednesday, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau was in White Rock, BC, making an announcement about raising taxes on the largest banks and insurance companies, an extra 3% in corporate income tax on profits over $1 billion. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole was in Brantford and Hamilton, Ontario. O'Toole unveiled his party's mental health action plan, which includes helping an additional 1 million Canadians receive mental health treatment every year and creating a national 3-digit suicide prevention hotline. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was in Windsor, Ontario, releasing a plan to lower cell phone and internet bills. The plan would save an average family $1,000 annually. Green Party leader Annamie Paul was in Toronto, and the leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, was in Beauce, Quebec. According to a Nanos poll from August 25th, Liberals are in the lead with 36%, Conservatives 33%, and the NDP 17%. Potential trends are emerging as Liberals show positive movement while the NDP realizes a decline. Anti-vaccination protest followed Liberal leader Justin Trudeau's campaign trail across the country. On Wednesday, Trudeau ran into protesters who were booing him as he went past them in White Rock, BC. When Trudeau was making an announcement on hiking taxes of big banks and insurance companies, the sound of protesters was heard. "Trudeau, you will never take away my freedom." 2 days before Trudeau called the election, he took a tough stance on the mandatory vaccinations. He proposed mandatory vaccinations for all public employees and for all travelers, foreign or domestic. Vaccination has since then become the subject of national debate. After the Toronto Police Service announced a mandatory COVID-19 vaccination policy for all members on Tuesday, President of the Toronto Police Association, John Reid, released a statement stating, "The TPA must make every effort to protect all of our members and therefore does not support this mandatory vaccination announcement or mandatory disclosure." This announcement, however preliminary, is missing critical details that are central to understanding the impacts, timelines, or potentially alternative options available to our members, said Reid. "This announcement has our full attention, and the TPA will be working closely with other impacted parties, unions, associations to explore our collective options," he continued. Democracy works when citizens cast their ballots. Concerns are growing that with this pandemic still spreading, it will be challenging for many to get out and vote. It may be an even greater struggle to get young Canadians out to vote. In the last election, just 54% of the 18 to 24 age group went to the polls. Youth voter turnout tends to be lower than the national average, 13% lower in effect. Groups representing youths in Canada fear that number will drop even further with the COVID-19 pandemic heightening some of the normal challenges to get young people to cast a ballot. A lack of interest, lack of motivation, and lack of knowledge in the electoral process all play into the challenges for young voters. The pandemic has also forced Elections Canada not to run its Vote on Campus program, which normally sees ballot boxes set up at colleges and universities. Student associations have taken up the cause and launched an online campaign to motivate people to get out and vote. The nonpartisan website Get Out and Vote informs people about where they can go to vote and everything required to cast a ballot. While youth issues have not been a major focus in this campaign, the parties have been making an additional effort to connect with the young voters through social media sites. If the parties send the right message, young people could swing the vote. On August the 22nd, Echoes Research released a poll that gave Erin O'Toole's Conservatives a lead over Justin Trudeau's Liberals among voters in the 18 to 24 year range. Nationally, the NDP has 20% support, the Liberals 28%, and the Conservatives 33%. The Conservatives are giving the Liberals a run for the youngest voters. The Liberals will have to fight for every vote going forward, and with the NDP's charismatic leader Jagmeet Singh gaining traction among voters, a Liberal win on the 20th of September just might not happen. And coming up, we have the parties promising to make banking more affordable, and the Prime Minister is accused of giving contracts to the CCP, while Canadians languish in a CCP prison. But first, please subscribe if you're new to this channel and turn on that notification bell so you won't miss any new videos. We'll be bringing you election coverage from coast to coast in the coming weeks. Thank you for your support. Now, let's get back to our coverage. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau campaigned in BC, announcing his government, if re-elected, will raise the corporate income tax from 15% to 18% on banks' earnings over $1 billion. And the Liberals would also establish the Canada Recovery Dividend. The measures would together draw $2.5 billion per year starting in fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Trudeau said that big banks and insurance companies are recovering well from the pandemic and should contribute to rebuilding the economy. In recent days, major Canadian banks reported stellar Q3 earnings, mostly due to the backflow of cash in a metric called Provision for Credit Losses. Banks including RBC, BMO, TD, Scotiabank, and CIBC have racked up more than $5 billion in this type of provision to manage the risk of bad loans caused by the pandemic. The Canadian Bankers Association made a statement soon after Trudeau made the announcement. It said, quote, "The Liberal campaign's proposed new taxes will merely redirect to government coffers the financial support that Canadians rely on directly from banks." The association pointed out that singling out specific economic sectors for special taxation is a proven detriment to economic growth and has been abandoned as a strategy from previous governments that tried to pursue similarly counterproductive policies. The Conservative platform last week promised legislation to encourage banking competition by allowing fintech companies into the market. As for the NDP, the party promises to improve access to banks in rural and remote communities. On Tuesday, Conservative MP Pierre Paul-Hus released a statement in response to a report in the Globe and Mail. It accused the governing Liberals of working with the Chinese Communist Party while Canadians are being detained in mainland China. The Conservative candidate said, quote, "As the Chinese Communist regime arbitrarily detain Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor and commit genocide against the Uyghurs, the Trudeau government quietly awarded an $100 million contract to a Chinese state-owned company, offshoring thousands of Canadian jobs in the process." The Globe reported that Federal Crown Corporation Marine Atlantic awarded a $100 million contract to Sweden's Stena North Limited, which then subcontracted a shipping company under the state-run China Merchants Industry. The two Michaels were arrested in China in December 2018, not long after RCMP detained Huawei CEO Meng Wanzhou on charges that her company violated U.S. sanctions on Iran. Conservatives have accused the Chinese Communist Party of using hostage diplomacy. On August 11th, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau released a statement regarding the arrest of the two Michaels, saying, quote, "China's conviction and sentencing of Michael Spavor is absolutely unacceptable and unjust. The verdict for Mr. Spavor comes after more than 2.5 years of arbitrary detention, a lack of transparency in the legal process, and a trial that did not satisfy even the minimum standards required by international law." However, the shipping contract was not the only contract that the Liberals awarded to state-affiliated entities while the two Michaels were detained overseas. In May 2020, Trudeau endorsed a contract to collaborate on vaccine research and manufacturing with CanSino, a biotech company collaborating with the People's Liberation Army. Trudeau's critics, including Conservative Paul-Hus, have accused Trudeau of working too closely with the Chinese Communist Party, citing human rights concerns and saying that Trudeau is putting Canadian interests at risk. With that said, thank you for watching NTD Canada News. If you like this video, please give us a like and share. It will help more people see our channel. We'll be back with more comprehensive election coverage, and we'll see you next time.